Welcome back. Episode 23, I believe. Let me just check in with that just to make sure we've got no, episode 24. There we go. A few more episodes, a little bit late this week. It's been a bit of a crazy week at work, so just trying to get an episode completed before the end of the week. I'll have it up either today, which is Saturday, the 16th of December, or tomorrow. Chris has been out of action still, just haven't had a chance to catch up, but trying to just keep the ball rolling and do the occasional solo episode. And when I do solo, I tend to just make it short and succinct. And I did mention last time that I have a few interviews lined up, just a busy time of the year for people, and also that I'm going to do some more deep dives on athletes and just do a bit of research and get into those athletes that I'm inspired by and I've been following for some time. So yeah, that's pretty exciting, and I'm looking forward to that. Today I just want to talk about the sport of Hyrox, though. I thought it would be a good thing to touch on, considering it's a lot of running involved, and it really does epitomise what I would call the hybrid athlete now. These particular athletes are amazing at running, but also they're then going to individual stations. I don't know if you haven't heard of Hyrox, maybe go and Google it, but just a quick snapshot. It's known as the sport of fitness racing. The CEO and founder, Christian Tozika, don't know exactly if that's how you pronounce his surname. It was formed in Germany in about 2018. It's quickly grown worldwide and becoming, a mass participation fitness race. I think they're sort of, calling it. I've completed one. I did one last year. Turned me inside out. Basically, was one of the hardest things I've ever done, apart from maybe my 7-hour mile mountain bike race. That was hard and grinding, but this thing just, blew me up in terms of heart rate and, the ability to go from a 1 kilometre run to a station. So basically it is, you start with a 1K run, and then you go directly to some sort of station, and the first station is a ski erg, and then you go back to a 1 kilometre run. So all the stations most people would be familiar with in the gym. There's no crazy, lifting platforms or exercise or kettlebell swings. This is where it's very different from CrossFit. And I understand that people became, fully into CrossFit, but I think for the average person going to the gym, I mean, you have to really become specialised in CrossFit at a lot of exercises. And even I listened to a great interview the other day with Hunter McIntyre. He's currently the world record holder, maybe not the current world champion, but definitely, in the top two athletes in the world at the moment. But he does hold the fastest time across a Hyrox course. And he went and did a few CrossFit events, and he said he wanted to prove that he could actually win a couple of the individual events. He knew he wouldn't win overall because he's just not big enough. And as he mentioned the other day, the average elite CrossFit athlete is over 6 foot, and the average elite Hyrox athlete is over 6 foot, and the average elite CrossFit athlete is under 5'9" or something. So, the athletes are much taller, much leaner because there is a lot of running involved. Hunter McIntyre also made a very good comment or point the other day that if you believe you're going to be an elite Hyrox performer, you need to basically be running a sub 35 10K. He believes his 10K time will be around the 32-minute mark soon. He's putting out low 3-minute Ks between these stations. I mean, it's phenomenal that he's going from a 1K ski erg and then straight to a 1K run, and he's knocking out low 3-minute Ks. And it is around, a course, so it's around corners. The beauty of this particular race, I believe, is that it's uniform. It's the same all around the world. It doesn't change. The courses, may vary just slightly given the space they've got to work in, but predominantly they're indoor. So these things are the same all around the world, and it allows you to train properly for the event. You can actually go off and actually, train for these events, practicing the running and practicing the actual transition from the run to a station, and you can practice the individual events because you know what's coming up. So that part I loved about it, that you could just actually get a bit of a rhythm, and, you could actually have a full workout, and you could actually, if you've got an idea about coaching and so forth, you could actually work in your blocks. You could, start with a big endurance block, which I'm kind of in now if I'm contemplating doing another Hyrox next year. You go into your, running block for probably 6 or 8 weeks, then go back to more of a strength-based block to make sure you've got the strength there. You're doing strength training while you're running, by the way, so it's a true hybrid athlete style workout. And then you're probably going back to a little bit of running to pop your endurance up again. And then you're going into more specific training, where you're doing the individual stations and going into running and making sure what they call this compromised running situation. So you can go from, the burpee broad jump straight into a run. But, I just wanted to touch on, it's a really interesting event, and I can personally see this exploding. I think last year they may have had about 150,000 competitors around the world. There was 2 events in Australia, both sold out, Sydney and Melbourne. They've just announced Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Perth. That's how popular this thing is becoming. I think they'll start running multiple events in each state, and I think they'll actually have multiple seasons. But I can also see money coming into it. Hunter McIntyre, I heard an interview with him just this week. He's virtually become a professional athlete. He said 2 years ago he made $19,000. Now he's got 7 staff members working for him. He's launched training programs. He's launched supplements. He's just got a shoe sponsorship from Puma, and all these other opportunities starting to open up, which I can really see this becoming quite big. And the owners of this particular event really know what they're doing. They were running Spartan races and running and cycling events before, so they're used to this mass participation. And the owner, one thing he mentions all the time is that when he was asking people about what their sport is, people that just went to the gym every day, their sport, they were basically saying, is keeping fit at the gym, is going to the gym. That's their sport now. So that's where he got the idea, why don't I introduce a mass participation event for these people that just consider their sport going to the gym? So, I really see this exploding, and people, as the money comes into it and the sponsors get involved, and they'll start upping the prize money. There's already a bit of prize money there, and people can actually make a living at it. It will draw a lot more people into it. And then you'll just have the mass crowd behind. And the other thing I love what they've done about it is they've made a teams event. So because it is so difficult as an individual event, you can do it with 4 people, and they've made double events. You can actually double up with another a male athlete, or you can do the mixed doubles, and I think they even do mixed teams and gender teams as well. So it's a really interesting event, and figuring out the training I think is also interesting at the moment because it's so different. There's a lot of great endurance athletes out there, and there's a lot of great strength athletes out there, but having the combination of the two, I don't know we've had really a true hybrid sport for these hybrid athletes to test themselves. I understand that, Tough Mudder and some of these other events, but I don't know how much, and I don't know much about these sports, so people can reach out and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know how much of the strength aspect is involved in some of these sports. And I just think there's some athletes out there that haven't caught on to Hyrox yet, and they'll come in soon, and I think we'll see a completely new breed of athlete. It's been interesting to listen to a lot of the podcasts starting to start up around this space, that what type of athletes do they believe would come in and do very well? And one young guy I was listening to, he's only 24, he was saying he thought a cyclist could come in and do quite well, particularly more of a sprint cyclist that has still the endurance. You can remember the guys that actually win the Tour de France, the sprinters, they still get through the 21-day tour, but they've also got the strength. Obviously, the very small cyclists would need to put on a bit of weight because there is some heavy, loads. You've got to push a sled and pull a sled, so you have to be somewhat strong. But they do typically restrict their upper body strength dramatically, so they don't put on that weight to ride the bike these days. But so I think there's going to be some great athletes coming to it. I think a rower could do very well. They'd have the cardio, particularly because they've just got such big engines, and they've got the strength. And during the actual event, there's actually a 1K row erg. There's a 1K ski erg, so the rowers would actually clean up on that, carrying kettlebells for 200 meters. They clean up on that. The taller athletes tend to struggle on the ground events. You've got to do a walking lunge with a 20 kilo bag, 30 kilos for the elite athletes. The taller athletes tend to struggle with that a little bit, and the burpee broad jump, they tend to struggle with that. But majority of the other exercises, the taller athletes are very good at. And listening to Hunter McIntyre, when asked about what athlete would do very well, he felt a cross-country skier. And I thought that's very interesting. You've got the ski erg, which I'll obviously clean up on. They've got the massive cardio engine, and they can actually have this unbelievable ability to bring their heart rate down. And for me personally, that's what I really struggled with, is in between those runs, is getting my heart rate down enough to actually perform the next exercise, particularly after the burpee broad jumps. I did really well for the first half of the event, and then I completely blew up after the burpees and couldn't get my heart rate back down. I basically, my event was over 90 minutes, and I ran at 173 heart rate for over 90 minutes, and I'm in my mid-50s, so that was pretty tough. But yeah, so it's an interesting event. If you haven't heard of it, haven't seen it, I would encourage you to go and actually Google it and have a look at some of the videos. The other thing is it's going to become a great spectator sport because you can actually race together. When you race on the day, which is quite nice as just the general public in the open event, you race with just a bunch of people. You could be with young athletes and old athletes. So you don't know, actually not racing against someone per se, and there's other people on the course at the same time. So you catch up with some people, and the people behind starting in the next wave 5 minutes behind can catch up to you as well. When they have the open or the elite races, only the elite athletes are on the course, so they can actually see each other and it becomes a true race. So yeah, interesting event. I think the big challenge at the moment is figuring out exactly how to train for it, given the fact it's only been around for 4.5 years and it got shut down during COVID. So technically it's probably only been running for about 2 years, 2.5 years. So I think there's a lot of people still trying to figure out the training at the moment. But it's growing very fast, and I think it's going to be a really interesting event and a space to watch over the years. The big thing I'm waiting for is for one of the big shoe companies to jump on board and make a shoe for it, specifically for Hyrox. So at the moment, you need to wear a running shoe because you're running 1Ks between each station, but you've got to push and pull a sled and do things like burpees. Now, you need grip for those particular events, and I was very cautious about what shoe I wore. I've got a shoe that I run around the streets in, but it's very slippery. If you have any water under your foot, it's very slippery. So I actually had to test a few shoes in the gym before I did the event, and I ended up using a Saucony Cavana as my preferred shoe. Probably not the ultimate shoe. I notice a lot of the athletes are using the Saucony, more of the running shoe with the carbon fiber, and there's a Puma shoe. I don't know the names of these, but that they're using as well. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting. We'll see some of the large manufacturers soon start manufacturing a Hyrox shoe, and I think there's even an opportunity out there for somebody like Noble to probably jump on it straight away, to be honest, given the fact they did make a specific Hyrox CrossFit shoe. But there also might be an opportunity for a small, innovative company to actually fire up a Hyrox shoe now and really focus on it. There's probably going to be enough participation around the world that you'll get a particular market just buying that Hyrox shoe. The other very clever thing which they're doing, they're not opening up their own gyms like CrossFit did and had the CrossFit box. They're partnering with gyms all around the world. So they've partnered with BFT in Australia. So they've basically gone off to them. They now pay a license fee to use the Hyrox name, and they have developed Hyrox programs, and you can become a certified Hyrox coach and so forth, and there'll be all these other revenue streams. But if you do the math, I think it's about 170 Australian dollars to actually enter one of these events. They're getting 3,000 to 5,000 people per event. Obviously, there's some setup costs, but you think about the setup costs, they're the same. Once they've bought that equipment for the Australian market, they'll obviously leave it here. They'll use it multiple times per year, so they own it now. I don't know if they'll ship it up and down. I assume they'll probably ship it down to Melbourne and ship it over to Perth. and that will just get packed up and stored for the next 12 months. That becomes an overhead they don't have to worry about. And then it's just a renting of the space, and they can run these things indoors. They're now talking about doing the first one that's going to be part indoor, part outdoor. I think that's very exciting. I think that's going to be in Miami. So they'll do part of the stations indoor and the run outdoor. I think that's going to be a great event to watch. Maybe the run will be a bit longer as well, because at the moment, the one that I competed at in Sydney, you had to do 3 laps of the indoor space to actually complete your circuit. What became difficult there, you have to count your own laps. And it was very easy to get confused at how many laps you've done. When you start to get fatigued, in particular, heart rate's going through the roof, and you're trying to figure out, how many laps have I done? 2, 3? Should I come in now? I had my watch running, and every time I ran out, I know I was running somewhere between 5.5 and 6 minute laps. 5.5 and 6 minutes per kilometre. That when I came out, I would just keep an eye on my watch. That I knew halfway there, around that last lap, I should be around the 5.5 minute mark thereabouts, and that's when I would come in. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on that. I'm going to write more and talk more about it, because I think it's a big space and it's going to be interesting to follow. I do have a newsletter, if you're interested, that I've started to write about. It's at hyroxhub.com on Substack. You can also find it on Instagram, Hyrox Hub on Instagram, and there's a link in my bio there to go to the newsletter. But yeah, so watch this space. I'll do some curated content from what's going on in the industry, and I'll write some articles about training. And I hope to develop a 12-week training program, as I get a better understanding as well about the running component and combining all the exercises and the strength. So anyway, that's all from me. It's short and sweet today, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye for now.